Hello students, welcome to Utkaram. So today we will be discussing about the topic characteristics of living beings. The subtopics that we will be discussing are reproduction and respiration. So this is the third video of the series. Previously we have posted two more videos covering the topics growth, consciousness and metabolism. So today we will be discussing about the topic reproduction and respiration. So let us start with the first topic, reproduction. Now, what do you understand by the word reproduction? It is the ability of an organism to produce offsprings of its own kind who are biologically similar to the parent organisms. So, by the process of reproduction, one generation produces the next generation, and the offsprings are biologically, genetically similar to the parent organism. The word reproduction means to reproduce. Now, in the previous lectures, I have said that something about the defining characteristics. So, reproduction is a defining character of living beings. You will never see an inanimate object reproducing. You you will never see, like the example which I take most, you will never see a small chair being formed from a bigger chair. Yes, you can use up the wood to make a smaller chair, but that is renovation. That is not reproduction. So reproduction is a defining characteristics exhibited by the living beings. For unicellular organisms, growth and reproduction are mutually inclusive events. That means for a unicellular organism, what happens? When it multiplies, it is basically reproducing. From one cell, another cell is being formed, and that can also be said for growth also. For unicellular organism, one cell constitutes the entire organism. Hence, for them, we can say that growth and reproduction are mutually inclusive events. Whereas in case of multicellular organism, it is opposite. So let us discuss the types of reproduction that we have. In this picture, you can see here I'm showing you a few examples of reproduction. First one is that of the human beings. You can see that two gametes or sex cells, they are coming together, they are fusing to form zygote. And that zygote is giving rise to embryo, and from an embryo, after several stages of development, we get an infant or baby. Next, you can see amoeba. So amoeba over here is displaying binary fission. So what is binary fission? As the word suggests, binary means two. Bi, that stands for two. So from one amoeba parent cell, we are getting two daughter cells. So this is binary fission exhibited by amoeba. Here you can see reproduction exhibited by higher plants, the angiosperms. We have flowers in plants, they pollinate. After pollination, fertilization happens. From there, we get a fruit inside which there is seed, and inside the seed there is embryo. This seed, after germination, gives rise to a new individual. So, this is reproduction for the angiosperms. Now, if I have to discuss the types of reproduction, reproduction the process of reproduction is of two types. First is asexual reproduction, and the next one is sexual reproduction. So under asexual reproduction, you will see there are several heads. First one is fission. Next we have budding, fragmentation, true regeneration, vegetative propagation, and spore formation. So there are 6 types of process mainly which we can see under the head of asexual reproduction. These 6 types qualify as asexual reproduction. So what is asexual reproduction? In case of asexual reproduction, offsprings are formed from a single parent without the involvement of gametes or fertilization. So in the process of asexual reproduction, there is only one parent participating, and there is no case of uh, fertilization observed. But in case of sexual reproduction, the story is exactly opposite. We see there are gametes, two sex cells fuse and give rise to a new individual. So sexual reproduction is of two types, syngamy and conjugation. Syngamy is of different types, which we will be discussing shortly, and conjugation. Conjugation is observed in bacteria, where a fragment of DNA is transferred from one bacteria to the other, and it gives us a genetic variation. So that is conjugation. In some cases, you will see that conjugation is often not considered as a true form of sexual reproduction, as no offspring is produced as such, but considering from the perspective of genetic variation, it can be called so. Now let us talk a bit about the asexual types of asexual reproduction. So the first we had was fusion, fission. So fission is of two types. If I take the example of amoeba, because it shows both multiple fission and binary fission. So as the name suggests, multiple fission is what? Under unfavorable condition it happens. One individual gives rise to multiple cells, multiple individual. That is multiple fission. But binary fission, as the name suggests, one individual gives rise to two offsprings. So the name comes from the number, the name is the hint for you to understand the number of offsprings generated. In case of multiple fission, multiple amoebal cells are formed, and for binary fission, two amoeba cells are formed. Multiple fission usually happens under unfavorable conditions, but binary fission occurs under favorable conditions. The other type of asexual reproduction is budding. The examples we have over here is Hydra and Saccharomyces cerevisiae. The common name is yeast. In case of Hydra, you will see there is a bud forming over here on the parent plant, parent organism body. This bud grows, matures, and then finally gets detached. And it goes and connects itself to a substratum where it matures and gives rise to another individual. Here in case of yeast, you can see one bud is forming over here, and from that bud also several buds are forming. So this is the process of budding. Next type we have is regeneration. So this is the third type of asexual reproduction, that is regeneration. What happens in case of regeneration? No gamete formation is taking place. First example that we have is starfish. What happens? One arm of starfish can generate a full individual, a full organism. Clear? So that is called regeneration. From any part of the organism, when there is a capacity, when there is a possibility of giving rise to a full organism, it is called regeneration. The next example of regeneration we have is planaria or flatworm. What happens? You can see over here, any part that we take gives rise to two new individuals. So this is regeneration. The next type of asexual reproduction that we will be discussing is fragmentation. Here I've shown you two examples of fragmentation. First one is Spirogyra. It's an algae. What happens? The plant body gets fragmented. See, first fragment, second fragment, third fragment. Any number of fragments you can get, but each fragment will give rise to a full individual. So that is fragmentation in Spirogyra. Next, we have fragmentation in case of Protonema of mosses. So what is Protonema, students? It's an undifferentiated thread-like structure that is formed from a spore of moss. So this thread-like structure grows and finally forms this bud-like structure after a bit of differentiation. From here, it breaks down and you can see over here roots. So this structure itself is capable of forming a full-grown individual. So this is fragmentation in the Protonema of mosses. Next, we have vegetative propagation. Now, all of you are by now familiar with the term vegetative propagation, where we use plant parts other than seeds to form individual plants. The few examples you can see over here. If I magnify this, I hope it will be visible to you. Yeah, I hope you can see it better now. Root propagation, rhizome, tuber, leaf of bryophyllum. On the margin of the leaf, you will see that small buds are formed. So these are all examples of natural vegetative propagation. These all types happen naturally. Next, we will be discussing about the artificial vegetative propagation. You can see that grafting, cutting, all these processes, what do we do? Whenever we are trying to pot a plant, what do? We cut a portion of the plant. We simply uh, put it in the soil separately until the roots arise, or maybe sometimes we wrap a moist cloth and wait till the roots arise, and when it comes, we place it in the pot. So here we are not using the seeds of the plant to form another individual plant. We are using other parts like stem, twigs, uh, vegetative propagations that we have. And vegetative propagation is a mode of asexual reproduction exhibited by plants. Another type of asexual reproduction that we will be discussing is spore formation. So what happens? Here I have taken the example of rhizopus, which is common bread mold. Bread mold is very simple. You keep a bread under moisture, and for after a few days you will see that a greenish patch is formed on the top of it. If you take a bit portion from there and place it under the microscope, you will see small thread-like structures going creeping on it, and on top of it you will find these structures, these bulb-like structures, which is called sporangium. Sporangium is the structure which contains the spores, and these spores, when they are released and they reach a favorable substratum, they germinate to form respective individuals. So this is all about spore formation. Now, these were all the types of asexual reproduction, and we have talked about it. Let us now discuss about sexual reproduction. Now, sexual reproduction is of two types: syngamy and conjugation. Under syngamy, the process of syngamy can further be uh, divided into three types: isogamy, heterogamy, and oogamy. So, what is happening in isogamy? You can see over here the gametes are same. Whereas in case of heterogamy, the gametes are different. Both are motile, but the nature is different. The size is different. Whereas in case of isogamy, you can see as in iso means same. So the genotype is different. That means the genetic makeup is different. But if you look at the gametes from the outside, they are exactly the same. Whereas in case of heterogamy, the size is different. So you can very well identify the gametes by their size. And next is oogamy. In case of oogamy, not only the size is different, but also there is a difference in the motility factor. One gamete will be motile, another will be non-motile. So this is about syngamy. Next, we have conjugation. I have discussed a few moments back that conjugation is often not considered a true mode of sexual reproduction. It is exhibited by some bacteria. So, what happens in case of conjugation? We get a genetic variation. So, from that perspective, we can consider it as a form of sexual reproduction. Here you can see there is a plasmid which is being transferred through a pilus into another bacterium, and that gets integrated. So the bacteria which is giving the genetic makeup, or the plasmid in this case, it is called a donor, and the one that is receiving is called a recipient. All right. So that is all about sexual reproduction. Now let's quickly so students, let us quickly get into a fun fact. Did you know that spores of certain ferns were used as medicines? So spores from certain fern species such as Osmanda cinnamomea have been used as traditional medicine. These spores are eventually believed to have medicinal properties and were used for various purposes back in the days when modern medicine was not much prevalent. So it was an old age therapy which was used, right? So next we will move into the topic respiration. So that was all about reproduction. I hope you have understood it. Now let us discuss about the second topic, that is respiration. So what is respiration? Respiration is the metabolic process that occurs in all organisms, all living organisms. It is a biochemical process that occurs within the cells of the organism. So respiration is always a cellular event. Breathing is something that the organism, it's related to the full organism. It is not an event occurring at the cellular level, but respiration is always carried out at cellular level. In this process, the energy that is released in the form of ATP, adenosine triphosphate, is used by the is produced by the breakdown of glucose, which is further used by cells to perform various functions. Every living species from a single-celled organism to dominant multicellular ones perform respiration. So it is a defining characteristic of living organisms. Respiration is performed right from the unicellular organisms up the hierarchy to the higher complex forms. So there are two types of respiration. There will be a full lecture on the chapter respiration itself. Here, in order to describe the characteristic respiration, I'll be just touching the heads for clarification. Respiration is of two types, aerobic and anaerobic. Now, from your preliminary knowledge, you already know aerobic respiration means the respiration that takes place in the presence of oxygen, whereas anaerobic respiration is the one that takes place in the absence of oxygen. Clear? So that is all about aerobic and anaerobic respiration. So let us quickly take an interesting fact. Did you know that newborn babies breathe at a double rate than that of the adults? So an average adult takes about 12 to 20 breaths per minute, and the infant, the baby, newborn baby, they breathe at the rate of 30 to 60 breaths per minute. So the range is almost doubled for the infants. So that is all about respiration. Let us take a few questions to test your understanding of the lesson. Which of the following organisms display regeneration? First is Agaricus, next is Asterias. Now Agaricus is a fungus. So we haven't taken the example of fungus in the regeneration portion. Next is Asterias. Now Asterias is the scientific name of starfish. So starfish, we have seen it as an example of regeneration. From one arm of the starfish, an entire organism can be formed. So yes, the correct option is option B, Asterias. The form of respiration that supports fermentation. Now, fermentation is a type of anaerobic respiration. It's a process which takes place in the absence of oxygen. So the correct answer will be the first one, anaerobic respiration, but you should check the other options too. Aerobic respiration, no. Both A and C, no. None of the above, no. So that's all for today, students. Hope you have enjoyed the lecture, and I hope you will follow the contents on different social media handles. Please don't forget to revise the concepts. As we go on finishing the chapters, it is important to go back and revise the older concepts so that you don't miss out the explanations and miss out the concepts. So revising is the main part of the preparation for any exam. So hope you have enjoyed the content. Uh, Thank you.